Number 10, GoldenEye. Now this kicked off the Pierce Brosnan era of Bond after like a 6 or 7 year hiatus. And I really like the opening of this thing because it acknowledges the fact that this Bond was apparently involved in the Cold War. So yeah, again, we don't really know how these Bond things kind of work out. I mean, Bond films are standalones, but at the same time, we know this guy. You know, we've seen him on other missions. So some of this stuff carries over and some of them doesn't. I like the idea of bringing up this this guy that you see at the beginning who's like an agent and apparently ends up being the villain of the film. Using an ex-00 agent as a villain was a pretty good idea. It was done a lot better in another film, but I'll get to that film when I get to that film. Also, I love the idea of using an EMP as a weapon. I think that's a great idea. The fact that it's an old Soviet weapon, because yeah, I have to admit, I really like how, if you don't know much about the Cold War and stuff like that, I mean, in the late 80s, here's the thing. James Bond has really always been involved with, say, the Russians. There are always well, okay, I mean, let's put it this way. The Cold War, we always thought Russia was the big bad guy. So oftentimes, James Bond would go against stuff that was related to the Russians and stuff like that. There was usually something involved in that. Here we see a Bond that's kind of like, it's very much after the collapse of the Soviet Union Bond, which we'd never really seen before, which I think is kind of great. I think you could do a lot with this, and I think that even the main villain is still trying to adjust to the fact that essentially like, hey, the Russians aren't the bad guys anymore. Now, he's motivated to take revenge against England because of historical fact with the Cossacks, and that really confused me. And I have to admit, I've looked up the history of this. So yeah, it's interesting though. So hey, you like things in Bond films that are interesting. And of course, this film also features Boris, played by Alan Cumming, who's one of the greatest villainous henchmen ever, with his "I am invincible" sort of thing that became a meme during the time of the internet. Because yeah, actually, when this film was released, the internet was really just getting started. Yeah, this is 1995. I mean, this is a whole different era for me, man. I was pretty young at that time. So yeah, I'd have to say this is a fairly decent Bond film, and it definitely holds up. So yeah, that's what I gotta say about it. Number 9, From Russia with Love. Yeah, you knew some of these Sean Connery films would be pretty high on this list, and they are. Some of these earlier Bond films are good, and they're the reason why we still have Bond films. From Russia with Love is a film that I remember first seeing as a kid, but I didn't get it, because the plot line from Russia with Love is very complicated. It's one of those that I was watching, and of course I remember the great action set pieces, and there's a lot of them. Bond takes out a helicopter, and he does this thing where he kicks some like fuel tanks on some boats that are chasing him, and then shoots the fuel tanks and they blow up, and I'm going like, whoa, hey, this is great. I think I mentioned that as a kid when I saw Bond, that I just really thought this guy was the shiz, and I thought like, man, I want to be James Bond when I grow up, even though of course he treats women terribly, and we'll get into some of how Bond's work does affect him, okay? We will. In this film, I mean, I think Bond's trying to stop somebody who wants to defect, and they're trying to do it by getting like a code machine or something. There's like a MacGuffin device in this film, for sure. This also introduces like a character who has blades on their shoes, which I have to admit, okay, that's pretty awesome. And that's pretty much what a lot of people remember in this film was blade shoes here. I know she has a name and stuff like that, and Spectre is also put in here, and I think we see the cat guy from the first time, Blofeld. You know, at that time he was stroking his cat, and you never saw his face and stuff like that. I think this is his first appearance. This film actually ties in a lot with Dr. No, which I'll get to, because Dr. No is a pretty good film, but I think it's actually kind of interesting. There are things that are mentioned in this film that reference Dr. No, which I kind of like the fact. I think these earlier Bond films were trying to do that. They were trying to create this kind of connected sort of storyline. In other words, they were trying to be the Avengers before the Avengers. So too bad that they never really did that, because most of the James Bond films after this, after Goldfinger, were very much standalone films. And I think they sort of went with that formula because they realized that they didn't want to create this big soap opera thing. Too bad. People love that now. Yeah, so they really could have been ahead of their time, and in a way they kind of were. There are things in James Bond film that just like, okay, this references this references this. And watching all 25 of them, you really get that. This is a film that I think is really good at showing spy Bond, actual spy Bond. It's probably the most realistic spy film of the whole James Bond thing. Like, I was looking at this film and I'm going like, okay, this could probably happen. Granted, the action set pieces at the end, I'm kind of going like, okay, that's a bit over the top, but that's Bond for you. But for the most part, I was going like, okay, this feels like something that could actually happen here, which I have to like, the gritty realism of it. Yeah. Number 8, The Spy Who Loved Me. Now, I really like this film because of a few reasons. This is a very over-the-top James Bond film. The villain is trying to do something that you would need quite a lot of money from, but yeah. And this isn't the first time where Bond's defeated a villain that, say, is just a very powerful millionaire type guy. Usually Bond has to face off people like this. The thing I like about this is that Bond has to work with the Russians, and is particularly a Russian agent, and one who he killed her lover on a certain mission. That was a really interesting development. I actually really like this idea here. That alone could have made this film, but then the film goes in this crazy direction where this villain has this big boat that can eat submarines. And then, of course, he figures out how to take control of the submarines so he can launch nuclear missiles. And apparently his plan is to make everyone live underwater. I am serious. His plan is to do that. Now, I have to admit, this guy has only... Okay, this guy is like this is the problem with watching a lot of these Bond plans, is that some of them are so ridiculous, but you see a lot of these tech billionaires and you're going like, they could probably do this if they wanted to, right? And this guy for sure is, I mean, it's like he wants to build like a new city underwater, but at the same time, he's only got one building of the city built, and it's like his. And I'm kind of going like, what do you expect to do this? There's going to be like billions of people that die before you get this dream. How do you expect this? It wasn't like, say, Moonraker, where the villain actually had like this group of people that he wanted to restart the population of Earth. No, it was just kind of him. And of course, he's got a shark tank because he has that. And also, this film introduces Jaws, and Jaws rocks. Okay, so one of the things that is just great is a lot of the action scenes here. I mean, they did this in 1979 or 1977, which, you know, I mean, Star Wars, I don't know if it had even been released yet by the time this film came out. But I mean, this is a car that can turn into a submarine, and I'm told this is one of the most gigantic sets ever. I mean, there's giant nuclear submarines on this thing. Bond has to use a nuclear weapon to get through like a thing. There is so much coolness going on in this film. I can't help but love it. You know, I first rented this film when I was a kid, and because I really liked James Bond back then. I remember my sister hated the fact I rented this film because she didn't like James Bond, and I get it. So I really just love a lot about this film. Now, the score is like disco story. You hear this waka-duck, 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 waka-duck. But of course, the theme song is timeless. Oh yeah. Number 7, The Man with a Golden Gun. Now, I think the reason why I like this film, and then why it's so high, is because of the performance of Christopher Lee as Scaramanga. This guy's just an a-hole, really. And I think that's the reason why I like this. He's essentially the 1% personified. He's this guy who just lives on an island. He has like this servant, Knick-Knack, who I guess he's just bored. He's like the villain on Kim Possible, Senor, who I can't help but think this character is modeled after, or that character is modeled after. Anyway, and he just kills people for sport. Like, he invites him to his island just so he can kill him, and he has like gold bullets because why not? He's like that. He's essentially, yeah. And I think there's a plot line in this involving like Bond trying to figure out safe energy or something like that. And here's the thing, I think the oil crisis was happening or something like that during this. Maybe I'm getting my history wrong. This film came out when I was super young, and you know, so yeah, I really just think that I think the whole reason why this film works is because it is like that. It is where it just comes down to Bond facing off with this guy, and this villain is larger than life, and I think that's really why this works so well. Now, there are a few questions I have about this film. First of all, there's a character in there, Knick-Knack. It's played by Hervé Villechaize, who is definitely most famous for his role in Fantasy Island, but I'm guessing this is probably his film where he got to start. I don't know. At the end, there's a scene where Bond has to essentially face off with Scaramanga, and Knick-Knack seems to go like, "Follow me," and he kind of goes like, "This is all be mine." I can't figure out if Knick-Knack is actually deliberately betraying his employer, or if this was part of the plan. And I actually think it's kind of cool that I don't really know that, and I like that kind of open-endedness that could be there. So yeah. As far as there's a scene here where J.W. Pepper shows up, a car chase scene. It feels like they just kind of want to put that in there for like a car chase scene, just because. And then it has that really cool stunt where Bond goes off a bridge that twists, and then the car twists in the air. Great stunts here. And then there's a car plane here. And you get the feeling like this guy, Scaramanga, he could solve the energy crisis if he wanted to, but no, he just keeps it. I'm going to power my island with it. And he's just such a jerk. And you want to see him get his comeuppance, and when it does, it is actually very satisfying, really. So, yeah. Anyway, like it. Number 6, Honor Majesty's Secret Service. Now, I think you know why this rate's so high. Yeah, it has that moment at the end of it, but we'll get to that. This was George Lazenby's first and only role as James Bond, and I believe he was like a male model who had some limited acting experience, but he pulls off Bond extremely well. There's a lot really going on in this film because this is a film where Bond knows that Blofeld is the big bad guy, and so he's basically just searching for him throughout the beginning of this film, and he's trying to figure out like, okay, where is he? He finds Blofeld at this strange, remote location in Switzerland, which I have to admit is pretty, I don't know, it's really cool to go there. I would love to go there, and it feels like it's only accessible by helicopter and stuff like that. This feels like a Bond villain location. There's a scene here that I think I've mentioned before that I don't really know if there's continuity between these Bond films. So like when you see Bond, I think I mentioned this idea of the James Bond as an alias theory, that when you see Bond, it's actually just an alias. So these people, these other actors that appear, whether it's Connery, Lazenby, Moore, that's actually a different person. And I have to admit, that would make a lot of sense. There's a throwaway line at the beginning of this film where he says, like, this never would have happened to the other guy. I'm told that was an ad-lib line they kept in the film. And that makes me wonder if maybe they were going that direction or something like that. Because this was the first time they actually had to replace Bond. Sean Connery was really getting fed up with the role. He actually came back for one more film after this. I didn't know that. I always kept thinking, like, when I was a kid, I heard there were like 3 Bonds. At the time, there were only like Connery, Lazenby, and Moore. I just always assumed like there was like this guy was stuck in the middle between them. But no, yeah, that's kind of crazy, isn't it? This guy's doing his best job as James Bond. He has to, and they introduced Teresa in this thing, and she is played by the legendary Diana Rigg, who just passed away rather recently, and she could be the wife of Bond. And Bond actually settles down here, or tries to settle down, but yeah, the tragic ending and all the time in the world. And yeah, I always get to tears by the end of this thing. I think even as a kid when I saw this, because I had heard that James Bond got married once, and I was thinking like, oh my gosh, is this a film where he gets married? And it's like, well, why didn't he stay married? And it's like, yep, of course. Yeah, she gets killed by Blofeld. And that's kind of, it's so sad. It's so sad.